Hi, everyone. This is David Wheatley at our 20 plus 1 episode, known as 21, of David Wheatley's podcast. So welcome. Yes, we had thought that we would only do 20 and that we would have a going out of business sale and then lose our lease and sell all our inventory. And we did all that. And then we made so much from it that we have enough to do some more episodes. So I'm thankful to be back, episode 21. We lost our lease and then we found it. One small problem, we're out of inventory and we're completely out of ideas. Nevertheless, there will be some ideas that are going to come flying in. And they will manifest themselves. So looking over the notes, we don't so much have notes, although we do have notes, but what I'm looking at right now are some headings from the notes, which serve as a reminder as to what we've talked about, which brings us to the needlesome problem of perspective. And all these matters that are on here come about from someone's perspective, which is a popular word these days. The last 5 years I've been hearing a lot about, that's your perspective. In the old days, they say, well, that's your opinion. And before that, for the metaphysicals, that's your belief. And so when we look at these perspectives or these ideas, it's true. Much of this is coming from my perspective of what I believe to be important in the world, and that I make these as suggestions to the listener, to you, that they might become more important to you than maybe they already are. And so what makes me, because it's all about me, decide what is important and what is not? And where do these ideas come from anyway? Some of these ideas come from authority figures, which I refer to as turbo opinions, people that are powerful. I'll give a short list, I hope. Teachers, parents, more teachers, religious figures, politicians, anybody who's popular, pop figures, celebrities, anybody who has more to bring to the table than is your typical person you might see walking down the street or exchange a hi to or a greeting of some kind, or more than the person next to you on the plane who just brings basic, fundamental opinions. And so somebody can have, which comes down to power also. Somebody could have expert power because they have academic validations in the form of degrees, maybe honors. They could have awards, commendations. They can have height, they can have strength, loudness, vocabulary, knowledge, ability to speak multiple languages fluently, ability to play an instrument, or to do sports better than other people, catch a long ball. It's not limited to that. Catch a short ball, a handoff without dropping it. And so these turbo opinions float around the universe, and they need to be subjected to critical thinking. If it weren't a famous people saying it, if it did not qualify as a turbo opinion, would that opinion have the same value? I think in most cases not. There's another theory that says the louder the opinion is expressed, the more likely that it is a weak opinion, reminding me of that minister at this church where I played in Pasadena, reading off his father's notes, sermon notes, as he delivered the same sermon. And the note in the margin said, "Note to self, weak point, say loudly," which means the point in the sermon was weak and that the deliverer, how many R's is that, should say it loudly so that no one will notice that it is a weak point. So I tend to give more credence to my own life experience because I was there at the time. However, my perspective of that counts as one camera angle among many. And that's why I'm curious at a high school reunion, for example, or a grouping that witnessed the same thing, to hear other people's points of view and what they noticed from their camera angle. So all this can be merged said this to a therapist one time, but he, of course, brought it back to me. He said, well, what he, the therapist, cares most about is what I thought and noticed at the time. And I think also it's important that we have a broad enough opening in our minds, and here comes another word that's been around for a while, lens. Through that lens, thankfully that word is gone as of a year or two ago, but it was everywhere for a while. Through the lens of this or the lens of that, knowing that with eyeglasses, lens can take incoming light and refract it, or reflect it and bend it, and make it not very much like the original light. What is the point of all this? The point of all of this is I really like everything in the prior 20 podcasts, whether these opinions have come from turbo people or not. And I very much like them, and they have very much informed my work, especially on a cumulative basis. Remember that guy, the physicist who looks at the toaster from 20 different points of view? That's what this list of 20 different episodes does as well. Different ways of looking at the same situation. Or as my composition instructor at USC said, to look at a composition the same way you'd look at a sculpture in a museum or in an art gallery, and you could walk around it and see it from different points of view, and to do the same thing with the music. So where are we now? We have discussed, or considered is probably a better word, many, many different ways of looking at a situation. And I'm thinking that now it's time to start suggesting or using as examples some of what's been happening in the news to make maybe this a little more applied, more current. I was going to pick up a copy of the LA Times and start going through it so you could hear the papers rustling as the pages get turned. But then I thought we'd just start with some basic, larger issue items and narrow them down to the LA Times in the future. So, what's in the news today as of, Friday, June the 17th, 2022? We're dealing with big-time inflation. A lot of cash has been poured into the economy. In the old days, they would print it on a printing press. Now they just press buttons on a computer, and cash gets made to represent the same assets. So this cash is actually worth slightly less as it goes into the marketplace than the cash that was already in the marketplace. So we have inflation to deal with. The Federal Reserve Board has either raised or is about to raise interest rates. So when people want to borrow money, they have to pay more for it, more interest. So this will slow down borrowing, make something that was affordable yesterday not affordable today because of the higher interest cost, especially when you get into big numbers. We have an incursion by Russia into the Ukraine. This has been going on for 2 or 3 months. That's in the headlines. We have local elections in LA, which stands for Los Angeles. Rick Caruso is up against Karen Bass. Rick Caruso being he's always called the billionaire developer. If he has billions, I'd really like to see him prove that, and I'd like to see him give some of that to us. And Karen Bass is known as a career government person in Congress now, or formerly in Congress, wanting to be the mayor of Los Angeles, and is accustomed to looking to government at various levels for funding to do things. Those are the two main ideologies from my perspective. Those are underway. We have a housing situation to deal with here where there are people sleeping under bridges and with tent encampments on the sidewalk, and there are other people living in mansions where they're the only person in the mansion of 25 rooms or 30 rooms. And they go from mansion to mansion. There are also many, many high-rises of luxury apartments and condos that are available for rent, and not enough people to rent them. And these tens of thousands of units are vacant, while down in the street below this high-rise, people are sleeping on the sidewalk. So we have some imbalances, would be the nice way to put it. Inequities would be the more political term to describe it. And in our next episode, we will talk about these situations in terms of social psychology and the principles of that. I'll do a quick refresher now because we have another minute or so. Individuals, how they think, feel, and believe, and create their own perspective based on their life experience and turbo opinions. Dyads, D-Y-A-D-S, just couples, how they relate to each other and bring their respective perspectives together. And then groups, a lot about that in the next episode. And the leaders of groups, how does Rick Caruso mount a campaign? Who are the people helping him? What is his group? What is Karen Bass's group? And then individuals versus groups. Rick Caruso trying to persuade his group to do what he wants, and the group trying to persuade Rick Caruso to do what they want. And then groups versus groups. Rick's group versus Karen's group. As you can see, we're, thanks to this podcast, already on a first-name basis with both of them. So patreon.com, contribute, press every button that says you like what we're doing. And davidwheatley10@gmail.com. Emails are welcome, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks for listening.